Hello, all. Please listen to this.
America is the only country that can print as much money as they want in the world. That is why even if they are in debt of over 38 trillion US dollars, the highest in the world, they are still able to make mega deals with these equatorial African countries like Rwanda and Congo, Uganda and Kenya, health deals. And this is how it works. The US dollar is the global reserve currency, and this gives those guys utmost power. This is the thing. In America, they have two major arms. The US Treasury, which is like the accountant of the US. They handle their money, they collect their taxes through the IRS, they pay for their expenditures, everything. And they also issue the annual budgets. And then there is a Fed, which is the Federal Reserve, which is also like the equivalent of our central banks. Now, the US Treasury will issue an annual budget, let's say, of like what? 9 trillion US dollars. We all know those guys don't have 9 trillion cash that they're going to spend. And so what they're going to do, some of it is going to be financed by the taxes they have collected. The other, they're going to issue US Treasury bonds. I told you what the bonds mean. It's the government begging investors some money and will give you interest in return. So, you investors are going to invest in these US Treasury bonds to finance these guys' expenditure, their corruption and all that. Now, what happens when they don't get enough investors? Because I've also read that Japan, China, all these guys invest heavily in the US treasuries. So now, if they don't get enough investors, guess what? The Fed is literally going to buy these bonds. Do you know what that means? The Fed is literally going to print new money, dollars, for these guys to spend. Oh my Lord. So I'm like, it's like the government needs money and the government prints the money. Oh my Lord. But that's not a problem because America knows these dollars are on demand elsewhere. Like the rest of the world is going to absorb them. They accept the dollars. So there would not be such a thing as oversaturation. If oversaturation happens, the Fed will regulate the interest rates. So what happens when a country like Zimbabwe decides to print its own money and be like, we don't give a fuck about these dollars? Zimbabwe did exactly that. So there was increase in the supply of money. Everybody had money to the point that bread was costing trillion Zimbabwean dollars, guys. You needed to carry a wheelbarrow to go and just buy yourself a loaf of bread. Now the thing is, money supply increased and yet the resources were still limited. So now the whole system crumbled and Zimbabwe had to get rid of its money and continue with the US dollar. But it's unfair because at first the US dollar was being backed against the what? The gold. 35 US dollars would give you 1 ounce of gold. That was in 1944 when they discussed the Bretton Conference where no African country was there. Caribbean countries were still under colonization. So these 44 guys agreed and said, we're going to be using the US dollar as the